Sir, you need to exit the aircraft. The security officer's voice cracked, but his eyes carried authority. Behind him, 312 passengers held their breath. Everyone knew why. Seat 1A, the first-class throne Marcus Thompson had purchased months ago, was still empty. No, Marcus answered, calm. The officer's hand tightened on his belt, leaning forward as if ready to drag him down the aisle. Passengers turned their eyes toward him. Dozens of phones rose, cameras already streaming. Whispers rippled through the cabin. He paid for that seat. They bumped him back to economy? This is going viral. Marcus remained motionless, 6'3", shoulders squared, hands steady on the armrests of his economy seat. His gaze cut straight ahead, cold and unflinching. The red emergency lights pulsed across his face, daring the world to wait for his answer. The first-class cabin drowned in silence, not the luxury of peace, but the suffocating pause before collision. An empty seat, an impatient officer, a crowd recording every breath, and one refusal, 12 minutes away from grounding an entire airline. 6 hours earlier, Marcus Thompson had awakened in his Buckhead penthouse with no idea this Tuesday would redefine his legacy. The October morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating framed photos of his journey. MIT graduation, his mother Rosa's proud smile, the NASDAQ bell ringing when Nextech Solutions went public. Today's mission seemed simple. Fly to San Francisco, finalize the Azure Airways cargo contract. $50 million annually to transport Nextech's quantum processors across their fleet. The irony would hit him later. At 6:45 a.m., Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport thrummed with its usual chaos. The world's busiest airport never slept. Marcus moved through TSA pre-check, his Hermes briefcase containing documents that could reshape aviation logistics. The weight of it felt good, purposeful. The Starbucks barista recognized him. "The usual, Mr. Thompson?" "Make it a double, James. Long flight ahead." The young man beamed. Marcus had paid for his coding boot camp last year. Small investments in human potential. His mother had taught him that. Rosa Thompson had cleaned airport terminals for 30 years, always telling her son, "They see the uniform, not the person. You change that, baby." At gate B23, Azure Airways flight 1847 beckoned. Marcus approached the counter, platinum status card ready. The gate agent, Janet Phillips according to her nameplate, looked up with a practiced smile that faltered when she saw him. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She frowned, typed again. Her blue eyes flicked between his face and the screen with increasing frequency. "Mr. Thompson, could you wait one moment?" She picked up the red phone, the one they never used unless something was wrong. Marcus had built a $2 billion company by reading micro-expressions. Janet's jaw tightened. Her left hand trembled slightly as she covered the receiver, whispering urgently. He caught fragments. "First class." "Yes." "Him." "Are you sure?" 3 minutes stretched like hours. Business travelers streamed past, boarding with ease. A venture capitalist Marcus knew from conferences nodded in recognition. A federal judge he'd testified before smiled warmly, yet he stood there, waiting. Janet hung up. Her smile returned, but it was different now, forced, almost apologetic. "Mr. Thompson, there's been a small issue with your seat assignment. I purchased 1A 3 months ago, paid in full." "Yes, sir, I see that. However," she paused, choosing words like someone navigating a minefield. "We need to redistribute weight for optimal flight balance. You've been reassigned to 27E. 27E, middle seat, economy, between the bathroom and the galley. Ms. Phillips, I'm looking at my boarding pass. It says 1A. Marcus kept his voice level, professional. "Don't make a scene." That's what they expect. "These things happen, sir. Aviation safety requires—" "Show me the weight distribution chart." Her smile cracked. "I'm not authorized to—" "Then who is?" She glanced over his shoulder, relief flooding her features. "Perfect timing, Mr. Miller. Your upgrade to first class has been approved." A white man in his 40s, unremarkable in every way except his timing, brushed past Marcus. Janet handed him a new boarding pass with genuine warmth. "Seat 1A, Mr. Miller. Enjoy your flight." The quantum physics CEO, the man reshaping global logistics, stood there watching a random passenger take his seat, the seat he'd paid for, the seat that somehow created no weight distribution issues for Mr. Miller. Marcus pulled out his phone, opened the timer app, set it for 12 minutes, one for each year his mother had been told she couldn't eat in the airport restaurants she cleaned, only in the service corridors. "Thank you, Ms. Phillips," he said quietly. "You've just made a very expensive decision." She blinked. "Sir?" But Marcus was already walking down the jet bridge, timer ready, mind calculating exactly how much power $50 million could buy. The thing about weight distribution? It was about to shift dramatically. The jet bridge tunnel felt like a throat-swallowing Marcus whole. Each step echoed with his mother's words, "Dignity isn't given, baby. It's taken." Inside the Boeing 737, first class gleamed like a promise broken. Cream leather seats, extra legroom, complimentary champagne already bubbling in glasses. And there, like a wound, sat 1A, empty. Marcus stopped. Other passengers squeezed past, muttering apologies. He didn't move. Janet Phillips materialized beside him, her voice pitched low. "Sir, you're blocking the aisle. Your seat is empty." Marcus pointed at 1A. "My seat is empty." "Mr. Thompson, please, you're making this difficult." "Am I?" He turned to face her fully. Several passengers had stopped to watch. "Explain to me how Mr. Miller's weight distribution differs from mine." Color drained from Janet's face. "It's airline policy." "Which policy exactly? Quote it." A flight attendant whispered urgently in Janet's ear. More passengers gathered, phones emerging from pockets like weapons of documentation. The modern jury had assembled. "Sir, if you don't take your assigned seat, I'll have to call security." "Please do." Marcus remained perfectly still. "Call them now." Janet's hand moved to her radio, then hesitated. Behind Marcus, a young black woman held her phone steady, already live streaming. "This is wild," she narrated. "They're really doing this to him." An older white man in 3C stood up. "Excuse me, what's the problem here? This gentleman seems calm and reasonable." "Please stay seated, sir," Janet snapped, composure fracturing. "But his seat is right there," the man persisted, pointing at 1A. "I can see it's empty." The truth hung in the recycled air, too obvious to deny, yet too dangerous to acknowledge. Marcus watched Janet's internal struggle play across her features. Training versus conscience, protocol versus blatant injustice. Then Mr. Miller appeared from the bathroom, face flushed with embarrassment or alcohol. "Is there a problem with my seat?" "Your seat?" Marcus's voice carried the weight of controlled fury. "Show me your original boarding pass." Miller fumbled, producing a crumpled economy ticket, seat 34B. The upgrade sticker was so fresh it hadn't fully adhered. "When did you request this upgrade?" Marcus asked. "I didn't. They just offered," Miller stammered. Janet intervened, physically stepping between them. "Mr. Miller, please take your seat. Mr. Thompson, final warning." "Warning?" The young woman filming laughed bitterly. "Warning for what? Standing while black in first class?" Her words ignited something. Other passengers began commenting, their voices rising. "This is discrimination. Let him have his seat. I'm tweeting United Airlines right now. Oh wait, wrong airline, same racism." Janet's radio crackled. "Security to gate B23, now." But Marcus had already pulled out his phone, displaying his banking app. There it was, the charge from 3 months ago. $8,243 for seat 1A, flight 1947, October 3rd. He turned the screen toward the gathering crowd. Paid in full, non-refundable, premium selection. A veteran in 2B spoke up. "I flew combat missions for this country. This man paid for that seat. Give it to him." Janet's hands shook as she reached for her tablet, desperately searching for some justification. "The system shows weight and balance, federal regulations." "Then ground the plane," Marcus said simply. "If my presence in 1A threatens safety, ground it. Call the FAA. Explain to them how my specific weight in that specific seat endangers lives, while Mr. Miller's doesn't." The cabin fell silent except for the hum of air vents and the soft ding of notifications. The live stream was going viral. Hashtags were being born. Hashtag first class while black. Hashtag Azure Airways exposed. Hash seat 1A gate. Janet made one last attempt. Sir, please, I'm just following orders. So was everyone in history who enabled injustice? Marcus pulled up his timer app. You have two choices. Give me my seat or explain to your executives why their biggest cargo contract is about to evaporate. Is that a threat? It's a countdown. His finger hovered over start. 12 minutes to decide what kind of company Azure Airways wants to be. The cabin held its breath. Marcus pressed start. The timer began its descent. 11:59, 11:58, 11:57. The soft beep cut through the cabin like a judge's gavel. Every phone camera turned toward him. Every passenger leaned forward. The digital numbers glowed red against the black screen, visible even from several rows back. What are you doing? Janet's professional mask finally shattered completely. Using the only currency your company understands. Marcus held the phone high. Time and money. Two security officers appeared in the doorway, their bulk filling the narrow space. Janet rushed toward them, whispering frantically, but Marcus's voice boomed over her. My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm the CEO of Nextech Solutions. He turned slowly, addressing the entire cabin like a boardroom. My company moves 60% of Azure Airways' high-value cargo, $50 million annually. Gasps rippled through first class. Phones swiveled between Marcus and the security guards, who had stopped advancing. 11 minutes, Marcus continued, voice steady as steel. In 11 minutes, if I'm not in the seat I paid for, I'm calling our partners in Shanghai, Dubai, and London. By minute 6, I'll have the FAA on the line. By minute 3, CNN will have this footage. Sir, you can't... One security guard started. I can. I am. I will. Each word dropped like a hammer. Your company made a choice. They looked at my face and decided I didn't belong in first class, despite my payment, despite my status, despite my contribution to their bottom line. The timer read 10:47. A woman in 2A stood up, Senator Patricia Hayes from Georgia. Marcus recognized her from campaign events. Officers, I'd like to know why you're removing a paying customer from his purchased seat. The security guards exchanged uncertain glances. This wasn't in their training manual. Captain Roberts emerged from the cockpit, his weathered face tight with concern. What's the situation here? Captain, Marcus said calmly, are you aware that your gate agent redistributed my purchased first-class seat based on my appearance? That's not... Janet started. Then explain the weight distribution issue that only applies to me. The timer showed 10:12. Explain why Mr. Miller's presence in 1A poses no safety risk. Captain Roberts looked at Janet, then at the empty seat, then at the sea of recording phones. 20 years of flying, and he'd never seen anything like this. Ms. Phillips, what's the actual issue here? Janet's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I was told, management said, the passenger manifest needed adjustment for optimal... English, Janet, the captain cut her off. Why isn't Mr. Thompson in his seat? The timer hit 9:30. Marcus pulled out a folder from his briefcase. The $50 million contract with Azure Airways. He held it up. 9 minutes to save this. The young woman who'd been live streaming shouted, We're at 300,000 viewers. Y'all, this is historical. A businessman in 4B stood up. I'm pulling my company's account from Azure if they don't fix this. That's $8 million in annual travel. Then 5A. Mine too. $6 million. The timer showed 8:45. Captain Roberts grabbed the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a customer service situation. Please bear with us. It's not customer service, Marcus corrected loudly. It's civil rights. The words landed like a bomb. The security guards actually stepped backward. Janet's tablet slipped from her shaking hands, clattering on the floor. Captain, Marcus continued, timer now at 8:00. You have command of this aircraft. You can fix this. But in 8 minutes, it won't matter. The contracts will be void. The news cycle will explode, and Azure Airways will be the next viral example of corporate discrimination. Captain Roberts, a man who'd flown through hurricanes and emergency landings, faced his hardest decision at a complete standstill. He looked at the empty seat, 1A, pristine and mocking, then at Marcus, standing tall despite everything. 7 minutes, Captain, Marcus said softly. What's it going to be? Captain Roberts pulled out his satellite phone. I need to call headquarters. 6 minutes, 45 seconds, Marcus announced, loud enough for every camera to catch. The security guards hadn't moved. One actually had his own phone out, recording. This would be evidence, but for which side? Janet Phillips fumbled for her radio. We need backup at... No. Captain Roberts' military command voice silenced her. We need solutions, not more problems. He dialed. The cabin could hear the ringing through the tense silence. This is Captain Roberts, Flight 11847. I need senior operations, now. His jaw clenched. I don't care if he's in a meeting. We have a situation that's about to cost this airline $50 million. The live streaming woman updated her audience. 400,000 watching. The pilot's actually calling corporate. Marcus stood perfectly still, a statue of dignified resistance. His phone displayed the timer for all to see. Around him, the passenger uprising grew. A tech executive Marcus recognized from Silicon Valley conferences stood up. I'm David from Nexus Ventures. We fly 200 employees monthly on Azure. He looked directly at Janet. Not anymore. Captain Roberts' face darkened as he listened to his phone. Sir, with all due respect, I have a plane full of witnesses and 500,000 people watching online. Yes, sir, I said 500,000. The passenger is Marcus Thompson, CEO of Nextech. Janet's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and gasped. Oh my God. What? The captain demanded. She held up her phone with trembling hands. CNN breaking news. Black CEO denied first-class seat on Azure Airways, live confrontation happening now. Marcus pulled out his second phone, his direct line to power. John, it's Marcus. Yes, the situation we discussed last month about systematic discrimination in aviation. It's happening to me, right now. Everyone in first class leaned forward. Who was John? I need that emergency FAA inspection we talked about. Full fleet review for safety compliance. Marcus's eyes never left Captain Roberts. Discriminatory seating policies constitute a safety violation, correct? Excellent. Stand by. The captain's phone rang again. He listened, his face cycling through confusion, shock, and then something approaching panic. Mr. Thompson, Captain Roberts said slowly, was that John Martinez, the FAA director? Deputy director, Marcus corrected. We served on the Transportation Equity Board together. 4 minutes, Captain. Janet sank into an empty middle seat, her authority evaporating like morning mist. The security guards had fully retreated to the galley, wanting no part of this historic disaster. A silver-haired judge in 3A stood up. For the record, I'm Federal Judge Catherine Williams, 11th Circuit. I'm witnessing clear violation of Title II of the Civil Rights Act. This recording will be admissible. The timer hit 3:30. Marcus's phone rang. He answered on speaker. Marcus Thompson. Mr. Thompson, this is Richard Hayes, CEO of Azure Airways. The voice was strained, barely controlled. I understand there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Marcus replied clearly. Your employee explicitly stated I couldn't have my purchase seat due to weight distribution. The seat remains empty. 3 minutes, Mr. Hayes. Please, let's discuss this. We are, publicly, with... Marcus glanced at the live streamer. 700,000 viewers, she shouted. 700,000 witnesses, Marcus continued. Would you like to explain your company's weight distribution policy that only applies to black passengers? Silence stretched like a tightrope. Mr. Thompson, Hayes's voice cracked. What do you want? Justice, accountability, systemic change. Marcus's voice carried the weight of every person ever denied their rightful place. And my seat. Janet, Hayes barked through the phone, put Mr. Thompson in 1A immediately. But Marcus raised his hand. Too late for that, Mr. Hayes. 2 minutes, 15 seconds. What do you mean, too late? Panic bled through the CEO's professional tone. I mean that gesture is no longer sufficient. Your company revealed its values. Now face the consequences. The cabin had become a courtroom, a theater, a revolutionary stage. Passengers stood in the aisles, phones held high like torches. The woman streaming was crying while narrating. This is history, y'all. This is how change happens. Captain Roberts tried one last time. Mr. Thompson, please. I've been flying for 20 years. I've never discriminated against anyone. Don't punish the innocent. Marcus's expression softened slightly. Captain, you seem like a good man in a broken system, but that system continues because good people don't break it. 1 minute, 30 seconds. An elderly black woman in coach had somehow made her way forward. She touched Marcus's arm gently. My husband sat in jail for sitting at a lunch counter in 1960. You do what you need to do, son. Marcus's eyes glistened. He nodded. 1 minute. Multiple passengers announced in unison, like a countdown to New Year's, but instead of celebration, they awaited revolution. CEO Hayes's voice exploded through the phone. Mr. Thompson, I'm ordering all Azure policies regarding seat assignments to be reviewed immediately. Reviewed? Marcus laughed bitterly. 45 seconds. Revised, completely revised, anti-discrimination training for all staff. 30 seconds. Mr. Thompson, please. Janet suddenly found her voice, but it wasn't corporate anymore. It was human. I have 2 kids. I was following orders I knew were wrong. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Marcus looked at her, really looked. Saw the tears, the shame, the recognition. 15 seconds, he said quietly. Captain Roberts grabbed the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. What you're witnessing is wrong. As commander of this aircraft, I'm standing with Mr. Thompson. He walked over and stood beside Marcus. The countdown filled the cabin. 10, 9, 8. CEO Hayes screamed through the phone. Whatever you want, name it. 7, 6, 5. Marcus looked at the elderly woman who'd touched his arm, at the judge who stood as witness, at the hundreds of passengers united in justice. 4, 3, 2. His finger hovered over the phone. 1. The timer erupted in a long, piercing beep that seemed to shake the very foundations of the airline industry. Marcus lifted his phone to his ear. John, ground them. Every Azure Airways plane, full safety inspection, effective immediately. The cabin exploded, not in panic, but in triumph. Passengers cheered. Some cried. The live streamer fell to her knees. 1 million viewers! We just witnessed history! Janet Phillips stood slowly, removed her Azure Airways wings from her uniform, and placed them on the empty seat 1A. Mr. Thompson, she said, tears streaming. The seat you paid for. But Marcus didn't move toward it. Instead, he turned to address everyone. The cabin, the cameras, the world. This was never about a seat. The words, ground them, echoed through the cabin like thunder after lightning. CEO Richard Hayes's voice crackled through the speaker, no longer commanding but begging. Mr. Thompson, you can't be serious. We have 18,000 passengers in the air right now. I'm deadly serious. Marcus held his phone steady, broadcasting everything. Your company chose discrimination. Now choose immediate systemic change or immediate systemic consequences. Captain Roberts' radio erupted with chatter. Controllers, other pilots, ground crew, everyone asking the same question. Is it true? Full fleet grounding? The live streamer stood up, voice shaking. Y'all, the FAA website just posted an emergency notice. Azure Airways fleet-wide safety inspection. All planes grounded or returning to the nearest airport. Chaos rippled through first class, but Marcus remained the eye of the storm. This is insane! Janet burst out, then caught herself. But the corporate mask had shattered beyond repair. You're affecting thousands of innocent people. How many innocent people were affected when your company decided black passengers didn't deserve what they paid for? Marcus's voice cut deep. How many before me took the reassignment quietly? How many after me would have suffered in silence? His phone rang. The caller ID made everyone lean forward. FAA Director. Marcus answered on speaker. Director Martinez. Marcus, I've initiated emergency protocols. All Azure flights are being ordered to land at the nearest suitable airport. Safety inspection teams are mobilizing. The official voice carried absolute authority. The preliminary finding is that discriminatory seating practices constitute a federal safety violation, psychological harm to passengers, potential for conflict escalation, and violation of federal anti-discrimination statutes. CEO Hayes nearly screamed, "This is economic terrorism." "No," Judge Williams interjected firmly. "This is legal consequence for illegal discrimination." Mr. Thompson utilized proper federal channels to report a safety violation. Marcus pulled out the contract folder again, 50 pages representing $50 million. He held it up to the cameras, then slowly, deliberately, began tearing it in half. "No!" Hayes's anguish was palpable. "The board will destroy me. Our stock will crater. 20,000 jobs. Then you should have thought about that before your company decided my money was good enough, but my presence wasn't." Each tear of the paper sounded like thunder. Before Ms. Phillips was instructed to humiliate me, before Mr. Miller was upgraded to showcase who really belongs in first class. The contract fell in pieces, littering the aisle like expensive confetti. A notification ping echoed through dozens of phones simultaneously. The streaming woman gasped, "Azure Airways stock just halted trading, down 12% in after hours." But then Marcus did something unexpected. He pulled out a second folder. "However," he said, voice shifting, "I believe in redemption." The cabin fell silent. "This is a new contract. Same terms, same 50 million, but with conditions." He opened it, revealing highlighted sections. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for all staff, not the 15-minute video you currently use, but a comprehensive program designed by the Equal Justice Institute. Monthly audits of seating reassignments by race, a $20 million scholarship fund for minority aviation students. And Ms. Janet Phillips, Janet looked up terrified, terminated immediately with full severance and a letter of recommendation for following discriminatory orders she knew were wrong, because the system failed her too. Janet's sob echoed through the cabin. CEO Hayes's voice came through, broken, defeated. The board will beg for this deal when they realize the alternative," Marcus interrupted. "Every major corporation watching this is reconsidering their Azure contracts. Your competitors are drafting press releases about their inclusive policies, and the FAA investigation will find what we all know it will find." He looked directly at Captain Roberts. "Captain, you stood for justice. If Azure Airways survives this, you deserve to be their new chief of operations." Roberts's eyes widened in shock. "Mr. Hayes," Marcus continued, "you have a choice. Sign this new contract with these conditions, publicly apologize, and implement real change, or watch your airline become a Wikipedia entry about corporate racism." The timer on his phone was still showing 00 blinking red like a wound that wouldn't heal. "You have 12 seconds to decide," Marcus said. "The same 12 minutes you stole from me, compressed into the moment that will define Azure Airways forever." The countdown wasn't digital this time. It was human. Every passenger in the cabin began counting. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. The human countdown thundered through the cabin like a drumbeat of justice. Each number fell with the weight of history. 6, 5, 4. CEO Hayes's voice cracked like breaking glass. "Yes! God damn it, yes! I'll sign it! Everything! Just stop this!" 3, 2. "I accept!" Hayes screamed. "All terms. The training, the fund, everything. Legal team, are you recording this? I'm authorizing all of Mr. Thompson's terms." 1. The cabin erupted, but Marcus raised his hand and silence fell like a curtain. "Mr. Hayes, your verbal agreement is noted by approximately 2 million witnesses." The live streamer had lost her voice from excitement, holding up 2 fingers while pointing at her viewer count. "But words are wind. Captain Roberts, may I use your satellite phone?" Roberts handed it over without hesitation. Marcus dialed. "Governor Richardson? Yes, it's Marcus. I need the Attorney General's office to draft an emergency consent decree. Azure Airways has agreed to comprehensive civil rights reforms. Yes, ma'am. On live broadcast. Thank you. He hung up and immediately dialed again. John, stand down the complete grounding. Reduce it to all Azure flights currently on the ground staying grounded for immediate crew retraining. Planes in the air can complete their journeys. He paused. Yes, I have the CEO's recorded agreement to full reforms. 2 million witnesses. The relief in the cabin was palpable. Passengers who'd been holding their breath finally exhaled. Janet Phillips stood in the aisle, her wings still on the empty seat, mascara streaming down her face. Mr. Thompson, I knew it was wrong. Every time they made me do it, I knew. But I have kids, and the job market is— I know, Marcus said quietly. The system turns victims into perpetrators. That's why it needs to break. She nodded, understanding more in that moment than in 5 years of corporate training. Captain Roberts' radio crackled. Captain, this is Atlanta Tower. We need clarification on Flight 1847's status. Roberts looked at Marcus, who nodded. Atlanta Tower, Flight 1847 is returning to gate immediately. We have a civil rights situation requiring documentation and passenger accommodation. Copy that, 1847. Gate B23 is being cleared. Emergency services on standby. No emergency, Roberts clarified. Just history. The plane lurched gently as it began rolling backward. The physical reversal matched the power reversal that had just occurred. Mr. Miller, who'd been silent in seat 1A throughout the confrontation, finally stood. His face was red. Shame, not alcohol. Mr. Thompson, I didn't know. They just offered me the upgrade. I didn't think about— You didn't have to think, Marcus replied. That's the privilege. But now you've seen. What you do with that knowledge matters. Miller nodded slowly, then did something unexpected. He pulled out his phone and started typing. I'm the regional director for Southeastern Banking Consortium. I'm texting our board right now. We're pulling our corporate contract with Azure unless these reforms are implemented within 30 days. A ripple effect began. Other business passengers started making calls, sending emails. The streaming woman was crying and laughing simultaneously. 3 million viewers. Azure's stock is down 18%. Other airlines are tweeting their diversity policies. This is it. This is the moment everything changes. The plane stopped at the gate. The jet bridge reconnected with a solid thunk, like a judge's gavel ending deliberation. Marcus looked at the empty seat 1A, then at Janet's wings still resting there. He picked them up gently, walked over to the elderly black woman who touched his arm earlier. Ma'am, what's your name? Dorothy Williams. No relation to the judge. Mrs. Williams, your husband sat at lunch counters. He handed her the wings. These belong to that generation's courage. She accepted them with shaking hands. He would have been so proud to see this day. The cabin door opened. Not security this time, but news crews. The story had escaped the plane and was spreading like wildfire across every platform, every network, every conscience. CEO Hayes' voice came through once more, smaller now, humbled. Mr. Thompson, the board has called an emergency meeting. They're watching the live stream. They want to know if you'll address them. Marcus looked around the cabin, at Captain Roberts, who'd found his conscience, at Janet, who'd found her humanity, at passengers who'd found their voices, at Dorothy Williams, who'd found vindication for her husband's struggle. Tell your board this. For 60 years, airlines have been the buses of the sky, repeating the same discrimination at 30,000 feet. Today, at 0 feet, that ends. They can be part of the solution or part of history's trash heap. They have 12 minutes to decide. He started a new timer. This time, everyone could hear the clock ticking. The emergency board meeting was broadcast on the plane's entertainment system, an unprecedented decision that CEO Hayes had no power to stop. Marcus had insisted, transparency or nothing. 12 board members sat around a mahogany table in New York, their faces a masterclass in corporate panic. The chairman, William Thornton III, looked directly into the camera. Mr. Thompson, this is highly irregular. So is denying me my purchased seat. Marcus cut him off. 11 minutes remaining. The streaming woman whispered to her audience. 4 million watching. Boeing just tweeted they're reviewing their partnership with discriminatory carriers. Thornton cleared his throat. The board has voted. 8-4. Mr. Hayes is terminated immediately. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Even Marcus looked surprised. Hayes's voice crackled through the phone one last time. You can't. I've been CEO for 12 years. And enabled discrimination for 12 years, Thornton replied coldly. Mr. Thompson, the board accepts all your terms. Furthermore, we're offering you a position on the board. No. Marcus's response was immediate. I don't want to join your system. I want to change it. He pulled out his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm establishing the Justice in the Skies Foundation, $10 million of my own money. It will monitor every airline, every reassignment, every weight distribution excuse. We'll provide legal representation for anyone discriminated against in aviation. Judge Williams stood up. I'll serve on the board pro bono. Captain Roberts stepped forward, as will I. Then something extraordinary happened. Passengers started standing one by one, pulling out phones and tablets. I'm transferring $50,000 to the foundation, David announced. $25,000 from me, another voice called. My company will contribute $100,000 annually, Miller added, his transformation complete. The streaming woman was sobbing. The donation site just went live and crashed from traffic. This is bigger than one plane. This is revolution. Thornton's voice cut through the celebration. Mr. Thompson, we need leadership. If not the board, would you consider consulting on our restructuring? Marcus looked at Dorothy Williams, still clutching Janet's wings. Her eyes held 6 decades of waiting for this moment. Mrs. Williams, Marcus said, what did your husband always say about change? She smiled through tears. He said, change don't come from asking, it comes from demanding. Marcus turned back to the screen. I'll give you one name, Captain Michael Roberts, former Air Force, 20 years of experience, and the only person in your company who chose justice over job security today. Make him your chief of operations or find another consultant. Roberts' jaw dropped. Mr. Thompson, I'm not qualified. You stood up when it mattered. That's the only qualification that counts. The timer showed 5:47. Thornton exchanged glances with his board. Captain Roberts, would you accept the position? Roberts looked at Marcus, then at the cabin full of witnesses. Only if my first act can be implementing Mr. Thompson's reforms. Agreed. The timer, 4:23. Now, Marcus continued, about Ms. Phillips. Janet, who'd been silent in the corner, looked up sharply. She followed discriminatory orders. That's termination offense. But she also revealed the systematic nature of the discrimination through her actions today. Every passenger saw that this wasn't one bad apple, but a rotten tree. Marcus walked over to her. Ms. Phillips, you're fired from Azure, but the Justice Foundation needs people who understand how discrimination operates from the inside. Would you consider being our Director of Airline Accountability? Janet's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You're offering me a job? After what I did? I'm offering you redemption. The question is whether you'll take it. She stood slowly, removing her Azure uniform jacket. I'll take it, and I'll name every executive who gave those orders. The timer, 2:15. Marcus's phone rang. Another FAA call. Mr. Thompson, this is Director Martinez. The president just called. She wants to know if you'd consider serving on the National Transportation Equity Commission. The cabin went completely silent. Tell the president, Marcus said slowly, that I'll serve if she signs an executive order making discrimination in transportation a federal crime with mandatory jail time. I'll relay that immediately. The timer, 1 o'clock. Thornton spoke urgently. Mr. Thompson, what else do you need? We've agreed to everything. Marcus walked to seat 1A, still empty, still symbolic. He ran his hand over the leather. I need you to understand something. This seat represents every bus Rosa Parks was kicked off, every lunch counter my mother couldn't eat at, every position qualified Black professionals are denied. He looked directly into the camera. From today forward, Azure Airways will reserve seat 1A on every flight for a passenger who couldn't otherwise afford first class, a teacher, a nurse, a single parent, someone who serves society. Call it the Rosa Parks seat. The timer, 0:10. Do we have a deal? Marcus asked. 9, 8, 7. The countdown began again. Thornton. Yes, all of it. The Rosa Parks seat on every flight. 6, 5, 4. The foundation funding. 3, 2. Everything you've asked. 1. Marcus stopped the timer. Then we have an agreement. The plane sat silent at the gate for a moment that felt like eternity. Then Dorothy Williams began to clap. Slowly, steadily. The rhythm of change. Others joined. Not the performative applause of a landing, but something deeper, recognition of a moment that would be taught in history classes. Marcus walked back to the galley where Janet sat, her azure uniform crumpled beside her. You start Monday, $75,000 base salary plus benefits. That's more than Azure paid me in 5 years. That's what integrity costs. He handed her a business card. My personal cell. You'll need protection when you name names. She took it with trembling fingers. Why trust me? Because you'll never forget this feeling, this shame. It'll make you fierce in ways courage alone couldn't. His phone buzzed. A text from his daughter in Atlanta. Dad, I'm watching the stream. Mom would be so proud. Another. CNN wants exclusive interview. Another. President confirmed executive order, but the one that stopped him came from an unknown number. He opened it. Mr. Thompson, I'm James Williams, Dorothy's husband. I'm in hospice. Watched everything from my bed. 60 years ago, they arrested me for sitting at a whites-only counter. Today, you arrested an entire airline. Thank you for finishing what we started. Marcus's composure finally cracked. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he showed the message to Dorothy. She gasped, clutching her chest. He hasn't been conscious for days. The doctors said, Justice has a way of waking people up, Judge Williams said softly. Captain Roberts, now COO Roberts, approached Marcus. The media wants you outside. Hundreds of reporters. Marcus shook his head. Not yet. He walked back through the plane, stopping at each row, to the young woman who'd live-streamed. What's your name? Keisha. Keisha Brown. Keisha, you turned a smartphone into a weapon of justice. The foundation needs a director of digital advocacy. Interested? She nearly dropped her phone. Are you serious? Dead serious. We're building an army. A legal, digital, unstoppable army. He continued through the cabin, taking names, making connections. The venture capitalists who'd stood with him. The veteran who'd spoken up. Each person had chosen a side when it mattered. His phone rang. The name made him pause. Mom's nursing home. Mr. Thompson, your mother is asking for you. She says she saw the news. Rosa Thompson had advanced Alzheimer's. She hadn't recognized him in 2 years. Tell her I'll be there in an hour. He returned to the front of the plane. Miller still stood by 1A, looking lost. Mr. Miller, you benefited from a corrupt system, but you also recognized it and acted. The foundation will need corporate sponsors who understand both sides. Will Southeastern Banking be our first? Miller straightened. $5 million, annual, guaranteed. Then you've bought your redemption. Marcus finally headed for the door, but stopped at Dorothy Williams' seat. Mrs. Williams, would you do me the honor of being the first person to sit in the Rosa Parks seat? Oh, honey, she said, voice thick with emotion. That seat isn't for me. It's for my granddaughter. She's studying to be a pilot, first in our family to attend college. Then she'll fly Azure for free whenever she needs. Captain Roberts, make that happen. Consider it done. As Marcus reached the door, his phone buzzed with a notification from his banking app. The $50 million Azure contract payment had been reversed with a note. Void for discrimination. But below it, a new deposit. Justice Foundation initial funding, $73,000. The donations hadn't stopped. They were accelerating. He turned back to the cabin one last time. Every generation gets a moment to stand up or sit down. Thank you for standing with me. Outside, the October sun was setting over Atlanta, painting the sky the color of change. Hundreds of cameras waited. The world wanted to hear from the man who'd grounded an airline with nothing but a timer and truth. But first, he had a mother to visit, a woman who'd cleaned these very gates for 30 years, who'd taught him that dignity wasn't negotiable. The timer on his phone still showed 00 Oshi Tao, But really, the countdown to justice had just begun. 6 months later, Marcus Thompson stood in the same airport, at the same gate B-23, but everything had changed. The wall now displayed a plaque. On October 3, 2025, one passenger's stand against discrimination transformed American aviation forever. Azure Airways Flight 1847 to San Francisco was boarding. Marcus watched as Maria Santos, a trauma nurse from Grady Hospital, was escorted to seat 1A, the Rosa Parks seat. She'd been chosen from thousands of nominations. Her eyes glistened as she settled into the leather, holding her daughter's hand. "Mr. Thompson!" He turned. Janet Phillips approached, barely recognizable. Gone was the corporate automaton. She wore a Justice Foundation badge and carried herself differently, spine straight, eyes clear. "We just got our 100th discrimination case thrown out," she reported. "Delta, United, American, they're all implementing preemptive reforms. They're terrified of becoming the next Azure." Marcus smiled. Fear is a good teacher. His phone showed the timer app, still installed. He'd never deleted it. Those 12 minutes had become 12 months of change. The Justice Foundation operated in 14 countries. The Rosa Parks seat program had expanded to trains, buses, even cruise lines. Captain Roberts, COO Roberts now, joined them. "Marcus, the president's signing the executive order tomorrow. Transportation discrimination will officially become a federal crime. 20 years maximum sentence." "My mother would have loved to see this," Marcus said quietly. Rosa Thompson had passed 2 months after that day, but she'd been lucid for those 2 months. The recognition of her son's courage had somehow pushed back the Alzheimer's, giving them a final gift of time. "She did see it," Dorothy Williams said, appearing beside them with her granddaughter in a pilot's uniform. "Through you, she saw everything change." The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. Marcus looked at the passengers filing onto the plane. Every color, every class, every story. No one checking twice at seat assignments. No one being told they didn't belong. The timer had stopped at 0. But the countdown to justice? That timer never stops. It just waits for the next person brave enough to start it.